Hello and welcome to Cyberoam Online CCNSP Training Module 2. In this module we'll be learning about deploying Cyberoam. So let's have a look at the agenda of the presentation. So we'll be learning about all these kinds of deployments in different scenarios. We'll learn about the package contents, the factory default settings. So let's directly go to the package contents. So when you get the Cyberoam delivered to your office or to your home, you get the Cyberoam appliance, you get the straight through cable, the crossover cable, the power cable, the quick start guide, and the serial cable. So let's have a look at the factory default settings. By default, the IPv4 factory default addresses are as follows. For port A, it's in LAN zone and the IP address is 172.16.16.16 with the class C subnet mask, and it has got the DHCP server running. As a result of which, if you hook up a LAN switch to the port A and if you hook up computers to that switch, they'll be all getting IP addresses from Cyberoam DHCP server. Port B by default is in WAN zone and it has got the DHCP client running. So if your ISP is giving you dynamic IP addresses, Cyberoam port B will automatically get an IP address from the ISP. Port C by default is in DMZ and the IP address is 10.10.1.1 with the class C subnet mask. IPv6, now by default there are no IPv6 addresses configured in Cyberoam. However, if you want to configure IPv6 address, you can still go ahead and configure it on the Cyberoam interfaces. And each port can have IPv4 and IPv6 addresses, which means they're all dual stack appliances. Now, if you see the port A is in LAN, port B is in WAN, port C is in DMZ. However, these addresses are not hard-coded onto your appliance. You can configure any port in any zone. There is no hard and fast rule that port A has to be LAN, port B has to be WAN. You can configure any port in any zone. The default username and password for the web admin console are admin and the password is admin for the super administrator. The GUI username is Cyberoam and the password is cyber, which is the database administrator. For the telnet, you can log in with the password as admin. For the SSH, the username is admin and the password is admin. However, it's always suggested that you go ahead and change the default password, and we also give you an option in the dashboard. Click here to change your password. So you should follow that and change the default password from admin or cyber to something else. So let's have a look at how to register and subscribe your Cyberoams. But what will registration give you? Registration will create a customer account in Cyberoam in the central registration database, and it gives you the following benefits. It gives you 8x5 support as per your country time zone. It gives you gateway antivirus subscription, gateway anti-spam, web and application filter, intrusion prevention system, web application firewall, and it also gives you access to your customer My account for your support ticket management and for your subscription management. So if you want to activate the trials, you can only do that after you register your Cyberoam and you have your customer My account. You can access the customer My account from http://customer.cyberoam.com. So you can go to this URL and you can always access your own account. Now there's a very interesting point which you need to understand and remember. It's multiple Cyberoam appliances can be registered using the same customer account. So even if you have one customer account and you have got multiple appliances, you can register all those appliances under the same customer account for your manageability and management of the subscriptions as well. Customer can manage all support tickets under one customer account. So that's the goal of keeping a single customer My account and registering multiple appliances under that account. Alright, so let's directly go to the lab, which refers to the registration and subscription in details. So in the labs, we'll first show you the lab setup, how to set up the lab, and then we'll show you how to register and subscribe the Cyberoams. Now I've got a RDP set up from my laptop to my training PC, so I'll directly go ahead. Alright, so I'm done. Okay, so let's have a look at how the lab setup looks like. So you guys are already logged into the training portal. So I'll first take you to the training portal. So we're all participants here. So we're just trying to log in as participant. So you guys are also getting the same screen as I'm getting. Now if you scroll down to a bit further down, you see an option create your own lab. This is where you'll have an idea how you'll have to set up your own lab. So I'll click on the create lab and see we're all going to do the labs with a virtual UTM which will be connected to the internet, and this virtual UTM will be installed on your own laptop or desktop, and we'll put that same laptop behind the virtual UTM. So what we'll be doing is we'll be bridging the physical NIC with the WAN port of the virtual UTM, and we'll put the other adapter behind Cyberoam for that particular laptop so that this laptop goes online through the Cyberoam. So to make this virtual topology, you need to have minimum configurations. There are certain minimum requirements for your laptop on which you are going to install the virtual Cyberoam. It has to be a Windows operating system. It can be Windows 7, Windows 8. For your reference, I'm using Windows 7 just for this training purpose. And you have to have a minimum processor speed of 1 gigahertz. However, the recommended is 2 gigahertz. You need at least 1 gig of RAM. However, the recommended is 2 gig because the Cyberoam is going to take up almost a gig. You need at least 10 gig of free space. However, the recommended is 80 gig because when you deploy Cyberoam, it has got 2 partitions, and total 2 partition size is almost around 80 gig for reports and all those other partitions as well. And of course you need internet connectivity over Ethernet. Well, some people might ask, can I do it over Wi-Fi? Certainly you can, but recommended is go with a wired connection so that you can bridge it up properly. Now how you are going to create your own lab? So you have to first get a trial version of Cyberoam Virtual UTM by dropping an email at training@cyberoam.com, and I'm sure that you guys have already got your appliance keys. So I'll show you in the later presentation or in the later lab how to register your appliance and how to download the appliance and then how to configure it. So you can use it on a VMware player, which I'm using, which is a freeware, or else you can use a VMware workstation if you have got the license for that. You can use VMware ESXi if you've got license for that. You can even deploy it on a Microsoft Hyper-V as well. So you've given him some reference links. So for installation guide for player, VMware workstation, and Hyper-V. Now using the VMware player, I'll show you just within a few minutes. When you go to the settings in the VMware for the NIC cards, you will be having 3 NIC cards of Cyberoam. So by default, automatically all of them will be bridged. The second adapter will be the WAN port of Cyberoam, which is port B, and you have to bridge it and you have to replicate the physical network connection state, and that's the adapter which is gonna be bridged with your physical NIC of the laptop or of the PC which you are installing on, and you can leave the other 2 adapters in default settings. And after that, in your laptop, you can manually assign an IP address of 172.16.16.17. Now remember, the Cyberoam default IP address is 172.16.16.16. So what we want to do is we want to assign the laptop.17, and we want to make the gateway of the laptop as 172.16.16.16, which is the Cyberoam. So that's all we'll be doing in the setup. So let me just close this off. And let me just check on my, see I've got a VM player. I'll just show you the settings. So they're the same settings. I've done a little bit of tweaking in my setting because I've got some multiple adapters, so I've just made it a custom. Otherwise you can just leave the first adapter, which is port A, as the default bridge. However, the adapter 2 is bridged. You can replicate that with the physical network connection state, and then network adapter 3, which can be DMZ or anything. You can leave that to default as bridge. That's fairly it. So now let's go to the next lab. So let's have a look what's the next lab is. Alright, so let's do the lab 1, which will be doing registration and subscription of Cyberoam. Alright, so I'm in my training PC. So all I have to do is first go to customer.cyberoam.com, and here I'll be registering my Cyberoam. So here I'll click on register your appliance, and I'll have to enter the email address and details. I'll just enter the email address, online training at cyberoam.com. I'll just copy and paste the appliance key right from my desktop, which I've got it. So I'll click on the I agree, and my appliance will be registered, and after that I'll come back and log into my account. So I'll pause the video for a while I click on agree and let the appliance get registered. So now I'm logging into my customer my account. So here you can see that my appliance is registered and I get a download link. So if I click on download, I'll be getting the option to download for which platform would I like to download. Normally this would take around 5 to 10 minutes, and I'll click on download and I have to select the platform. So here I can go ahead and select for VMware, Hyper-V, KVM or Citrix, depending on what platform will I be running the Cyberoam on. So I'll download it for VMware since I'm going to impart the training on VMware Player. So I'll pause the video here while I do the download. So here you can see that I've got it downloaded. Now it'll be downloaded in zip format, which you have to extract it. So now I've extracted it. And inside the file they'll be getting for different hardware versions, version 7 and version 8. And now I'll be going to import the OVF into VMware Player. So here is my VMware Player. I'll expand it so that you can see it in a better manner. So I'll go to Player and I'll go to File and I'll go to Open. And I will go to my download section, and here is extracted file. I'll go with VM hardware version 8. So it asks me to import that. I'll click on import. So now it's importing. So I'll pause the video for a while it's importing. So alright, you can see that it's imported now. So what I'll do before playing the virtual machine, I'll just click on edit virtual machine settings, and I'll have to change the adapter. So here you can see the mapping of port A, port B and port C. So what I'll do, I'll leave the port B as bridged, whereas port A I'll configure it as LAN. So I'll select custom network and I'll go with VMnet 1 host only, wherein I'll go with the port C, which is the third NIC card, and I'll select that to be a DMZ, and I'll choose that to be any custom VM network as well. So I'll click on OK, and I'll click on play virtual machine. So you can see it's loading up, it's loading the firmware. So till this appliance comes up, meanwhile I'll just show you how to subscribe the licenses for Cyberoam. So I'll go to customer my account, where the same account where I'm logged in. So I'll click on subscribe here, and here you can see that I've got a lot of trials left up. So I'll click on trials since I'm going to subscribe the trials. So you can see the trials coming up over here. So I'll first activate the trials over here, and then I have to sync it right from my appliance itself, which I'll show it to you now. So let me first activate the trials from here. So now let me go to the appliance GUI and show how to sync it. So this is the appliance IP which I've got. I'm accessing it from the WAN as of now. So I'm just browsing to HTTPS to my appliance IP. So I get to the login page and I'll log in with the default username and password. So you can see here that there is no registration data since I have not synced this appliance with our licensing server. So what I'll go ahead, and I will just sync it with our licensing server. So I'll click on System, Maintenance, I'll go to Licensing, and I'll click on Synchronize. So you can see here the trial is already subscribed. It actually automatically syncs itself as well, or else you can come here and forcibly sync it. So as of now, I've just subscribed IPS trial, so you can see only IPS activated. So let me just go ahead and activate the trials for other subscriptions. And let me come back to the appliance and I'll click on synchronize again. And you can see that all the subscriptions are subscribed as per the trial. So that completes our lab number 1. So let's get back to the presentation. Alright, so we're back to the presentation. So let's discuss about the different deployment wizard and different deployment modes in Cyberoam. We've got a built-in wizard for the ease of deployment. So on clicking the wizard button, a new browser window will be opened and it guides the user on the different deployment scenario. Cyberoam can be deployed in bridge mode or in gateway mode. By default, the Cyberoam appliance is always in the gateway mode. Now there's a small note at the bottom which you need to remember. The wizard option can be used the first time Cyberoam is deployed in the network. On running the wizard again, all configuration and settings on the Cyberoam appliance will be flushed. So you need to be careful that you run the wizard for the first time when you're configuring the Cyberoam. If you run it again at a later point of time, it will automatically flush all the configuration and reconfigure the new settings which you put in the wizard. And when you configure the wizard, there is a stage at which after you configure the IP addresses and all that, then you get the stage of default internet access policies. By default, Cyberoam gives you 3 policies: monitor only, general internet policy, and the strict internet policy. In the monitor only policy, it allows all LAN-to-WAN traffic without authentication, and there is no scanning or filtering done on the monitor only policy. It just sees the traffic and monitors the traffic and shows you in the report that these are the users who have browsed this particular website. These are the IP addresses. You won't be able to see the users here because they are not authenticated. In the general internet policy, it allows LAN to WAN traffic without authentication. So you don't have to authenticate. And web traffic will be scanned for virus and spam. Apart from that, the default content filtering policy, which is the general corporate policy, it will block all kinds of default categories which are specified in this policy. They're like porn, nudity, adult content, URL translation sites, or the proxy websites, and all these kinds of categories of websites are by default blocked in this particular general internet policy. If you go with the strict internet policy, it allows LAN to WAN traffic only on authentication. So you have to be very careful about it. If you are an unauthenticated user, you will not be able to browse if you select strict internet policy. And web traffic will be scanned for virus and spam. Apart from that, the general internet policy or the general corporate policy will be automatically applied on this particular strict internet policy, which means by default the content filtering for all these categories of websites will be blocked in this strict internet policy. And all network traffic will be scanned by IPS as well to check whether there is any attack in the traffic or not. Now, it's suggestible or advisable that in an advanced configuration of Cyberoam, you do not select anything on this policy, or in the wizard you just can go with the monitor only policy, because we'll be configuring individually different policies in our later on labs. You have to keep one thing in mind: every network is different, every organization is different. So certainly any one organization can have probably this category of website should have to be blocked. Other organizations say, no, I don't want to go with this default ones. I want to have this category also blocked. So you need to keep that in mind, and it's advisable to not configure anything on this particular section, or rather just leave it to monitor only from the wizard and then come back and then configure it according to your network requirements. This is just for the advanced configuration. However, if you want to stay on the default policies, you can select any one of it and you can let it be like that. Now if you go to the deployment wizard screen, you go to the dashboard and you click on the wizard icon over here. So the moment you click on the wizard icon, you get two deployment modes, the bridge mode and the gateway mode. After you click on next over here, you get the IP configuration settings, then you get the internet access policy setting which you saw in the earlier slide, and then you get the mail notification settings, and finally you click on finish and your wizard is done. Your configuration is configured according to the wizard. Now let's have a look what is bridge mode and what is gateway mode. So in bridge mode, Cyberoam is transparent to all the traffic. Cyberoam appliance can monitor and scan all the traffic, and bridge mode exclusively support features like LAN failsafe, which means if Cyberoam is sitting in line in your network with your existing router, and if Cyberoam goes down, maybe there is power failure, maybe the Cyberoam OS got some corruption or something, still it starts acting like a hub, and that's a feature which is called LAN failsafe. Now in bridge mode there are certain features which are not supported. So some of the important features which are not supported is VPN. No, it's not supported. NATing, it's not supported. In bridge mode, Cyberoam can't do any routing as well. Routing, not supported. It can't have multiple WAN links, so I'll just write as MU. Multiple WANs, no. It can't have different custom zones. No, it can't have multiple custom zones. Custom zones, no, not supported. So these are some of the features which are not supported in bridge mode. However, in gateway mode, Cyberoam does not support feature like LAN failsafe because it's in route mode or gateway mode, so it doesn't need the LAN failsafe feature. And features like DMZ, custom zones, multiple WAN links, load balancing, VPN, all these features are available in gateway mode. Now some people get confused and they ask questions that, can we have authentication in bridge mode? Can you have all the security policies like web filtering, antivirus scanning, anti-spam and all that? Yes, certainly you can have all of that, and you can use all of those features in bridge mode as well as in gateway mode. So even if you're deploying in bridge mode, these are some of the features which are not supported. Apart from that, it can do everything. So you can place Cyberoam in a bridge mode in inline and then monitor all the traffic and apply the security policies. So let's have a look, when do you want to choose bridge mode. So bridge mode is normally used for networks that already have an existing firewall or a router which is acting as a gateway, and customer doesn't want to replace the firewall. That's when you choose bridge mode. So you go to a customer place and he says, no, I don't want to replace my firewall at this stage. However, I want to try your product and I want to see how it works, how the reporting comes in, how the security policies work in. Suddenly you can do all of that in bridge mode. They can still add the security through Cyberoam's deep packet inspection, IPS, gateway AV, web filtering, and gateway anti-spam. You can have all the security features including reporting and authentication. So this is a sample diagram. So before deploying Cyberoam in bridge mode, this is your existing customer's network. So at this point of time, you have got an existing firewall. It can be an XYZ firewall, and you've got your LAN network 192.168.0.0 with class C subnet mask, and the gateway IP of this firewall is 192.168.0.1. So these computers over here are pointing to this particular IP address as the gateway, which is the existing firewall, which is pretty common. Like you've got a layer 2 switch and these computers are all pointing to the upstream firewall. Now the scenario changes a bit when you put Cyberoam in bridge mode, because as I told you in the earlier slide, let's say customer doesn't want to change his firewall but he wants to add security features in his network. That's when you deploy Cyberoam in bridge mode. Now remember, Cyberoam in bridge mode can't do routing. It's sitting inline. So the gateway of the existing computers still don't change. They're still pointing to the upstream firewall, and the gateway of the computers are 192.168.0.1. Cyberoam can't do routing. Cyberoam can't do NATing in bridge mode. However, it can do all the security functions. So that's a sample deployment of bridge mode. So Cyberoam now supports multi-port bridge with this particular release of firmware. So you can see multi-port bridge contains more than 2 ports to make a bridge network. So this will be very useful in scenarios where you have got multiple segments of network connecting and being terminated on Cyberoam, and you can control the traffic from one zone to another zone even though they are in the same subnet. So all Cyberoam ports can be configured as bridge ports. So if you want to go ahead, you can configure all the ports in bridge mode, and each multi-port bridge can have a single WAN link only. So you can't have 2 WAN, you can have only one single WAN link in a multi-port bridge. And it can be implemented in both IPv4 and IPv6 networks. So this is how it looks like. If you want to go ahead and configure it, you can go to network, interface and add bridge. And here you can put a number of multiple member interfaces inside it. So after you configure and add multiple interfaces in the member interface, you can go to multi-port bridge, and this is how it looks like. So you can see over here the BR ports, port D, E, F, and G. These 4 ports are a part of a multi-port bridge which is named as BR ports. So you can create and configure other bridge pairs or other member interfaces which are a part of a multi-port bridge. So let's have a look at the labs which you're going to do. So the second lab which you're going to do will be resetting the appliance to the factory default from the CLI of the appliance. And then we'll have an optional lab which is deployment in bridge mode. I'll show you how to deploy Cyberoam in bridge mode. Alright, so let's get to the labs. So I'll minimize the presentation and I will do an RDP to my lab PC. Okay. So I'm running the virtual Cyberoam in VMware Player. Now the first lab was resetting the appliance to factory defaults. Now in a virtual environment it's fairly simple. You go to the console and you go to option 5, and there you get the option 2, which is reset to factory default, and on pressing this your appliance will be reset to factory defaults. However, I'm not doing that because I don't want to lose my configurations, which I did, so I'll just exit from that. But you need to take a note here that in physical appliances you can't telnet or SSH to the appliance and go to the console and just try and reset the appliance. You don't do that. In order to do a reset to the appliance, to the physical appliance, you have to physically connect a serial cable to the appliance and then go to the console via hyperterminal or any other software, and then you can reset the appliance. So this is the very important thing which you need to keep in mind. You can't do a reset of the Cyberoam appliance remotely. Alright, so let's go to the second lab, which is the deployment of Cyberoam in bridge mode. So I'll go to the Cyberoam. I can access the Cyberoam from my laptop here. So I'll directly close this app and let me go to my browser. Let me browse to my Cyberoam. Alright. So this is the dashboard which we are getting here. So maybe I'll drag this up to it here. Okay, now I'll click on the wizard button over here and I get the option for configuration. So I get the start button. So I'll click on start and then I get two options, bridge mode and gateway mode. I have the flexibility to choose. So as of now, just to show it to you, I'll choose bridge mode. I'll go to the next and I can select 2 ports only. In bridge mode, you can only bridge 2 ports. So I'll click on next. Maybe I'll choose an IP address 10.206.1.probably 91. I'll choose a subnet mask of class C, and I'll select the gateway name. I can put in a gateway IP address. I'm not changing that because I have the same gateway. I'll click on next. I'll leave the obtain DNS from DHCP. Now here is the same configuration policy for LAN to WAN traffic. As I told you, I'm going to leave it to monitor only because you're going to do some advanced configurations on the Cyberoam. So I'll just leave it to default. These are for mail notifications. In case your appliance goes down, you will be notified via an email. Maybe you're having one or two ISPs, I would say, or two or three ISPs, and one of your ISP has gone down. Immediately you'll be alerted in your email. So that's the setting which you need to configure here. So I'll say send me an email notification at training@cyberoam.com. I'll just put in a dummy IP address as I don't have a mail server configured now. I will say probably john@cyberoam.com. No authentication is required. I'll click on next. I have the option to select the date and time from here. Either I select it manually or else I can also synchronize it with an NTP server. If you've got an NTP server in your network, you can select this option synchronize with NTP server and put in your NTP server's IP address. Or else you can use the Cyberoam internal list of predefined NTP servers. So I'll click on next, and in the final screen I get to do a review of the configurations here, and I'll click on finish and my bridge mode will be configured. However, I'm not doing that because I don't want to lose my settings. I just wanted to show you how to configure bridge mode. That's it. So I'll click on cancel over here. Now there is a small note which I would like to mention here. If you're deploying virtual Cyberoam in a Hyper-V environment, all you need to do is enable promiscuous mode on the Hyper-V switch and enable IP spoofing on that switch. The same thing goes with VMware ESXi as well. If you're deploying it in an ESXi environment, you have to enable promiscuous mode in the switch. These are small notes which you need to remember in case you are going with the virtual appliance deployment. However, if you're going in the physical appliance, this is how you convert the Cyberoam appliance to a bridge mode. And the default mode for Cyberoam is gateway mode. Alright, so I'll minimize this and I will kick off with the presentation. Gateway mode. So when you want to use gateway mode, when you want to replace your existing firewall or router acting as a gateway for your network with Cyberoam, or you want your gateway to act as a VPN gateway, or you want redundancy in your network, probably with utilizing multi-link and HA features of Cyberoam, or you want to configure separate DMZ zones to protect your servers from LAN and WAN zone. So this can be the possible examples when would you like to go for gateway mode. Now in gateway mode every feature is supported including routing, NATing. Now there is another mode which is called route mode, and there is a very thin line between gateway mode and route mode. So what is gateway mode? Gateway mode is nothing but route mode plus NATing at the Cyberoam appliance. That's gateway mode. So I'll shortly jot down the points. So if I am talking about gateway mode, it summarizes as route mode plus NATing. And if I'm talking about only route mode, then it means only routing and no NATing. So there is a very thin line of difference between gateway mode and route mode. So you can also deploy Cyberoam in route mode as well if your clients say I don't want Cyberoam to do NATing. And remember, there's a small note at the bottom of the screen which is very important. All the features except hardware bypass, which is the LAN bypass, which is supported in bridge mode. Now LAN bypass is not supported in gateway mode. So this is how your deployment looks like. We have an existing firewall which is connected to the internet. You have your LAN computers 192.168.0.0 class C subnet, and you've got your DMZ subnet as well. Now these computers over here are pointing to the LAN IP address, and the DMZ computers are pointing to the DMZ IP. And client says, I don't mind replacing my existing firewall, and I want Cyberoam to be deployed in gateway mode. So what do? You just go and deploy Cyberoam in gateway mode. So this is how the scenario changes. You just replace the existing firewall, put in the same IP schema on the Cyberoam of your existing or firewall, and then the gateway is still the LAN IP address, and the DMZ computers are still pointing to the DMZ IP address in the Cyberoam. So at the computer level, at the user level, or the server level, you don't have to change the IP addresses, you don't have to change the gateway. You just replace the same IP addresses in the Cyberoam on port A or LAN and DMZ. And that's it. You're pretty much done with deploying Cyberoam in gateway mode. You can either choose the wizard to configure it, or else you can also directly log into the Cyberoam and go to the interface settings and click and configure it over there. So let's have a look at the lab. So this is the lab 4, and in this lab we'll be doing deployment in gateway mode. So let's go to my lab PC. I'm not logging in there, I'm just directly accessing Cyberoam here. So I've got my Cyberoam open on the screen, and I will log into my Cyberoam. I'll click on login, and I'll again go to the wizard option. So once I click on the wizard, I get the start button, which I click it, and this time I will select gateway mode. So I'll go to the next option. I can put in the IP address. I'm not going to change any IP address now. This is for port A. You need to click on the next button over here to go to the next port, which is the port B, or the WAN interface. You can set it for an obtain IP address from DHCP or from PPPoE. Then you put in the gateway details over here. If it's a PPPoE, you put in the username and password, and you click on the next button, which is the port C. You can configure it either in DMZ. You can change the zone from here. You can put it in LAN, whatever you want. And then you go to the next configuration and you set up your DNS. In this section, I'll just leave it to obtain DNS from DHCP. Here I go to the same LAN to WAN policies. I'll leave it to monitor only. And you can configure the notifications. So I'll just put in training at cyberoam.com. Mail server as this. The from email address, I'll put it as john@cyberoam.com. Don't require authentication. Sorry, I typed in a wrong. There's a small typo here. I'll click on the next button. And here I again get to do the date and time settings, which I discussed earlier. And I'll go next. And finally, I get a snapshot of my configuration, so I can review that and click on finish. I'm not doing that because I've set up my Cyberoam with my own IP schema for our network environment, which is the lab environment. So I'm not clicking on finish. This is just for demonstration so that you can configure your Cyberoam in bridge mode or in gateway mode in the way I showed it to you. So I'll just click on cancel. Alright, so the last mode of deployment is mixed mode scenario. So I'll show you a small diagram out here where you've got a Cyberoam and you've got a LAN switch and you've got a DMZ switch as well. So you've got a DMZ network over here and you've got a LAN network here as well. Now there's a small wireless network which everybody prefers. So let's say you've got some guests coming into your wireless network and you'd like to put them in the same LAN network. Let's assume you've got a DHCP server on the LAN network and you want to extend the same release of IP addresses to the wireless network. But the question is, how do you offer security to the wireless guest users? Because once they are into your LAN network, they will be able to access the entire LAN computers over here, which is not what you want. In the same case, the LAN computers can also access the wireless computers over here, the guests which are connected to the wireless network. So this is not what you want. Most of the time what you do is you connect the wireless access point to the same switch, as a result of which the wireless guest and LAN computers can access each other. Now, that's not what you want. So how can you keep them in the same network and also say no, the LAN computers can't access the guest and the guest can't access the LAN computers? So that's when mixed mode comes into position, and that's when you deploy Cyberoam in mixed mode. So you've got a separate DMZ zone on a routed interface, and you bridge the LAN and the wireless network. So you connect the wireless access point to an external port in the Cyberoam, which is a routed port, and you connect the LAN switch to another port and you bridge these two ports. It's called mixed mode. So now they are sharing the same subnet space, 192.168.0.0. The wireless network is also 192.168.0.0. They're in the same subnet. They can access each other since they're in the same subnet, but Cyberoam, being a security device, doesn't allow communication by default. So that's not allowed until and unless you create a firewall rule and say, okay, LAN to wireless allow or wireless to LAN allow. You can keep the wireless network in guest zone or probably in a separate custom zone called wireless zone. And you can have granular controls on the access between the guest users and the LAN users. So let's have a look at how the deployment looks like in terms of configuration in Cyberoam. So go to the next slide. This is how it looks like. So if you go to your system interfaces and you can click on the add bridge pair over here, you can add two pairs of interfaces and you can bridge this pair of interfaces, and you can say, okay, this is a common IP address 192.168.0.1 with class C. So the computer is connected to the bridge network, any one of the interfaces. They'll be having the gateway as 192.168.0.1. So a pair can be bridged and other ports can be left to work in gateway mode. You can also create multiple pairs of bridges, and you can also have the other ports working in gateway mode as well. So mixed mode is nothing but a combination of gateway and bridge mode. You can also do the same thing using IPv6 addresses. So in case you want to bridge a pair of interfaces with IPv6, you can even do that. And here in this screenshot, you can see the IPv6 IP address is assigned on the mixed mode bridge pair. Let's see what's link aggregation. So link aggregation is also known as trunking. Some call it bonding, and the server guys or the virtualization guys normally call it teaming. So depending, the same synonymous terms and different terms are associated with the same meaning, which is trunking, bonding, teaming, or link aggregation. You can call it any way. So what are the advantages of link aggregation? The first advantage is increased bandwidth or aggregated bandwidth. So you're bonding two interfaces and you've got 1 gig in both the interfaces. You're going to have 2 gig bandwidth on that particular aggregated pair. And it also offers you load sharing as well. But it depends on the number of ports and the algorithm which you have used, whether you're bonding 2 ports or 3 ports or 4 ports, and which kind of algorithm you're using. It sometimes also offers redundancy as well. So in case you have bonded 2 pairs and one link goes down, traffic will automatically be going via the other port. So depending on what kind of algorithms you are using, you can either have increased bandwidth load sharing, or else you can also have redundancy among your multiple aggregated links. Now we've taken a sample lag scenario in this particular slide to show you the increased bandwidth of LAN and DMZ zone, and we'll show you also how to make the links redundant. So you can see the orange pair of lines in between here. These two are connected to 2 ports in Cyberoam and 2 ports in switch. These are offering aggregated bandwidth. These 2 links are aggregated together. Same goes with the green 2 lines as well. They're aggregated within DMZ switch. So they are aggregated to the DMZ switch. Now let's assume if the first link has got 1 Gbps and the other link has got 1 Gbps, these computers over here, when they transfer data across Cyberoam, that can be going across with a 2 Gbps of bandwidth throughput, or you can call that it's an aggregated throughput of 1 plus 1 depending on what algorithms you are using. If one of your link goes down, probably this first link goes down, no worries, they can still transfer the data, but the throughput will be decreased to 1 Gbps. Same goes with the DMZ switch as well. Now lag can be deployed in 2 ways. It can be either deployed in a load sharing mode, which is via 802.380 or LSCP algorithm is used in that. So in this, initially when lag was introduced in 2000, the LSCP protocol was introduced in IEEE 802.3as task force. You can also deploy lag in active backup, which follows 802.1 standard. Now this approach is Cyberoam proprietary, wherein we can say one link will be up at a time and the other link will be activated on the failure of the previous link. And in Cyberoam, you can have maximum of 4 ports which can be a part of a single lag group. You can have multiple groups of lag, but in a single lag group, there will be at most 4 interfaces or 4 ports. So if you're having 1 gig ports and you're aggregating 4 ports, it will give you 4 Gbps of throughput. Now lag interface can be a part of a multi-port bridge as well in Cyberoam. Now let's have a look at how can you use Cyberoam as a proxy server. You can also deploy Cyberoam or use Cyberoam as a proxy server. So to use Cyberoam as a proxy server, you need to go to the Cyberoam configuration and enable the proxy server IP address and just select the port number. All you need to do in your end computers is in your browser point the proxy IP address to the Cyberoam interface. So in this deployment, if I'm using Cyberoam as a proxy server, so in this diagram, if I'm using the browser, so I'll just write it like this, pardon me for my handwriting. So the browser will point to the Cyberoam IP address as the proxy IP address, and that's all. Automatically Cyberoam starts acting as a proxy server. You need to take a look at one thing. Cyberoam do act as a proxy server, but Cyberoam don't provide caching, and that's when you might need to configure Cyberoam as a parent proxy, which we'll cover in the next slide. Now by default the proxy server works on port number 3128 on Cyberoam, and these are the trusted port numbers which Cyberoam trusts. Now do not remove port number 80 and 443 from the trusted port, or else your browsing will stop entirely. Now this is what I was talking about, how to deploy Cyberoam in parent proxy. Now let's assume your customer or your client, or you have got a requirement that you need proxy caching, which Cyberoam can't do. So what you do, you enable parent proxy in Cyberoam. So once enabled, all the web requests will be sent to the parent proxy server via Cyberoam. And no need to configure parent proxy in case when network allows web traffic only via proxy instead of a direct gateway. So you've got an external proxy server which does caching, not a problem. The browser can still point to the proxy server and Cyberoam will intercept the request, apply the security policies, do the authentication, and forward it to the external proxy server for caching. You can also have the proxy server probably somewhere in the LAN as well. So I'll just write it as proxy server. In that case as well, the servers or the computers over here will point to this and the request will come to Cyberoam like this. The caching will be done in the existing proxy server, and then Cyberoam will apply the security policies and authentication and will let you go to the internet. So that's how Cyberoam works in a parent proxy scenario. So all you need to do is you need to go to the Cyberoam interface, you need to go to parent proxy, you need to enable that. You need to put in the proxy IP address or FQDN. You need to put in the port number, put in the username and password, and you're done. Now let's have a look, how do you update Cyberoam operating system? So Cyberoam releases new operating system for its devices at definite intervals of time. It is recommended to install and upgrade the appliances as and when a new operating system is released. The update process works in 2 steps. First, the customer is required to download the Cyberoam OS update file from the customer's account at customer.cyberoam.com. So you need to go to customer.cyberoam.com. You need to log in with your username and password, and beside the serial number of the appliance you see an upgrade link out here. You click on the upgrade link and it gives you the option to download the firmware, and once you download it you can go back to the Cyberoam and go to system maintenance and you can upload the firmware version over here. You browse, click on it, upload icon, you browse to the firmware from where you downloaded that and upload it on Cyberoam. Now downloading Cyberoam OS file, you have to be very careful that you're selecting the appropriate download version or the firmware version. Now when you upload the file by navigating to system, maintenance, firmware and click on the upload firmware button, you'll be getting the option to browse that particular version and upload it. The uploaded firmware can be active after next boot. You also have an alternate option to boot the firmware. So once you click on the upload icon, which I'll show it to you in the lab, you have two separate options. Either you upload it and keep it for booting it up later on, or else you select upload and boot option. The moment you select upload and boot, remember on clicking boot, the Cyberoam will be restarted. So if you select upload and boot option, the firmware will be uploaded and Cyberoam will be booting up, which means a reboot of the appliance. So this process may take a few minutes, as this process also migrates the entire configuration. Alright, so let's have a look at the lab, how to upgrade a Cyberoam. So let us go to our RDP session. Alright, so let me connect to my RDP session. I'll click on continue. And let me browse to customer.cyberoam.com. So I've already done that. I'm in the login prompt. So let me just log in with my username and password. Alright, so I'm logged in. And you get the same screen which you saw in the screenshot. So you can see the serial number over here and you can see the upgrade icon over here. Now I can click on any one upgrade icon over here, probably the virtual appliance which I downloaded and I'm using it over here. So I'll click on the upgrade icon and I get nothing because it's already upgraded to the latest version and there is no new upgrade file to be downloaded. So alternately, if you go to the Cyberoam, and if you log into the Cyberoam, let me just log in. In the dashboard, if there is a new release and your Cyberoam operating system is a big backdated, you can see a warning message over here, or you can see an alert over here that click here to download the latest upload file. You click on that hyperlink and it automatically redirects you to the customer my account and you have to log in and you can download that particular file. After you download the particular file, you need to go to system, you need to go to maintenance, and you need to go to firmware, and here you get the same upload icon. So I click on upload, you have to choose the file. Now if you select this option, upload firmware, it will simply upload the firmware. And then later on, when the appliance is not in a production environment or probably it's not in production time, you can come back and click on the boot icon over here because it will do a reboot of the system. Or else if you select upload and boot, the firmware will be uploaded and then it will automatically reboot the appliance with the latest firmware and the configuration will be automatically migrated to the latest version. Alright, so we are pretty much done with the lab and that brings us to the end of this particular module. Alright, so that brings us to the end of the module and we'll be seeing you in the next module, which is module 3, which is firewall. Thank you for attending.